This story is titled, Caught My Brother in Bed with My Fiancée. Family forgave them, ambushed me at Christmas, and tried to reunite us. So I ghosted them forever and built a new life. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit, before I dig into the crazy mess, let me give you some backstory. Growing up in a small town outside Milwaukee, I always thought my family was my foundation. We weren't the type of people to leave things unsaid or go months without speaking. My brother Dylan and I were close in that competitive two boys under one roof kind of way. He was a year younger than me, and we'd always been compared to each other. He was the charming, free-spirited type, while I was the one with a plan. Our sister, Mia, was the baby and our mom's shadow, always soaking up every ounce of attention she could get. Our parents, Claire and Joe, were typical Midwest parents. Mom ran the household with an iron will, and Dad was the type to crack jokes and grill steaks like it was his personal hobby. I thought I had it all figured out. A stable family, siblings I could trust, and a fiancé who I believed was my soulmate. Emma came into my life during a group project in my junior year at UW-Madison. She had this magnetic energy about her that made you want to be in her orbit. She was ambitious, confident, and ridiculously attractive. I fell for her fast. By the end of the semester, we were a couple. It felt like a whirlwind, but I didn't question it because it seemed perfect. I imagined our future together. Careers, kids, everything. One November, I proposed to her. It wasn't some grand gesture, just the two of us on a crisp autumn evening. She said yes, and we started planning our wedding for the following summer. It felt like the beginning of the life I'd always dreamed of. And then it all imploded. In March, I had a random slow Friday at work. I decided to surprise Emma with her favorite takeout and spend the evening together. When I walked into our apartment, everything felt off. Her shoes were by the door, but the place was eerily quiet except for faint laughter coming from the bedroom. My stomach tightened. Something felt wrong, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was watching a funny video or on the phone with a friend. When I opened the bedroom door, my world shattered. There they were, Emma and Dylan, tangled up in bed. Emma was wearing the oversized t-shirt I had given her for Valentine's Day, the one with the cheesy heart print. It wasn't hard to put two and two together. They froze, both of them looking like deer in headlights. It's funny how silence can say so much. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. Dylan, my own brother, had the audacity to say, "It's not what it looks like." I stared at him, almost laughing at the ridiculousness of it. Emma didn't say a word, just scrambled to cover herself with the blanket, like it would erase what I'd just seen. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. What was the point? The evidence was right in front of me. I looked at Emma and said, "Pack your SOT and get out." My voice was calm, steady. I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose it. Dylan tried to speak, something about how it just happened, but I cut him off. "You're dead to me." I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses or fake remorse. There's no "it just happened" when it comes to sleeping with your brother's fiancé. I walked out. I didn't wait for an explanation or a pathetic apology. I grabbed my keys and drove to a friend's house. That night, as I stared at the ceiling, the reality of it all sunk in. My fiancé, the woman I planned to marry, and my brother, someone I trusted, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. It wasn't just about the cheating. It was the fact that they'd both actively chosen to destroy something I valued so deeply. The day after I caught Emma and Dylan, I didn't think things could get worse. But of course they did. While I was at work, Emma moved out of the apartment. I'd already told her to pack her stuff and leave, so I figured that was the end of it. But when I came home that evening, there was a note on the counter, sitting right where we used to keep a framed picture of us. It was short, but not sweet. She wrote that she fell in love with Dylan and never meant to hurt me, followed by some garbage about hoping I could find it in my heart to forgive them. She had the nerve to finish the note with, "I hope you can still be happy for us one day." Happy for them? I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. It was infuriating. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. There was nothing left to say to her. The apartment felt eerily quiet without her stuff, but I didn't care. I wanted her out of my life as fast as possible, and now she was. My family found out what happened within a few days. I didn't tell them. I'm guessing Emma or Dylan spilled the beans. My mom, Claire, called me immediately. She was furious. Not at me, but at Dylan. She kept saying how she couldn't believe her own son would betray me like that. "He's not welcome here," she said over and over again. At first, it felt good to have her on my side, but I wasn't naive enough to think it would last. My mom's loyalty has always been conditional. She's the type who prides herself on keeping the family together, even if it means sweeping massive betrayals under the rug. I figured it was only a matter of time before she started defending Dylan. My dad, Joe, was a different story. When I finally answered one of his calls, he didn't say much. He just sighed and said, "Well, I guess things like this happen sometimes." I couldn't believe it. He wasn't angry, upset, or even surprised. He treated it like Dylan spilling coffee on my shirt instead of nuking my relationship and my trust in him. Mia, my younger sister, tried to be supportive, but I could tell she was conflicted. She'd call to check on me and say she couldn't believe what Dylan and Emma did, but there was always hesitation in her voice. She was caught between me and the rest of the family, and it was obvious. For weeks, I ignored most of their calls. I didn't have the energy to rehash what happened or hear excuses about why I should let it go. Instead, I threw myself into work. It was the only thing keeping me sane. My boss, Kevin, noticed I was putting in extra hours and asked if everything was okay. I didn't tell him the full story, but I admitted I was dealing with some personal stuff. That's when he mentioned the Indianapolis office. Apparently, they'd been struggling to find someone to lead the team there, and Kevin thought I'd be a perfect fit. It was a promotion and a chance to get out of Milwaukee, far away from Dylan, Emma, and all the mess they'd created. I didn't hesitate. I told him I was interested. When I told my parents about the relocation, my dad just said, "Good for you. A fresh start might be what you need." My mom, on the other hand, acted like I'd announced I was moving to Mars. She cried and begged me to reconsider. "What about family dinners? What about Christmas? You can't just leave us behind, Alex." I told her I wasn't leaving them behind. I was leaving Dylan behind. "He's not part of this family anymore," she said firmly. But I didn't believe her. My mom has a way of saying one thing and doing the exact opposite when it suits her. By July, my gut feeling was proven right. Dylan was back in the house. My mom called me one evening, casually dropping that they'd decided to let him come home for a while because he had nowhere else to go. She acted like it was no big deal, like she wasn't inviting the person who had betrayed me into her home, while still expecting me to show up for Sunday dinners. I didn't even try to hide my anger. I told her it was a slap in the face, that she was choosing him over me. She tried to justify it, saying, "He's still my son. I can't turn him away." I snapped back, "Well, he's not my brother anymore, and I don't want anything to do with him." That's when she started her family unity campaign. She went on and on about how we needed to heal and move forward as a family. It was all code for, "Just forgive Dylan, so I don't have to feel guilty about letting him back in." I wasn't having it. I told her, plain and simple, that I wasn't interested in healing or pretending things were okay. "You want unity? Then maybe stop rewarding the person who blew everything apart," I said before hanging up. After that, I kept my distance. I was busy preparing for the move to Indianapolis anyway. I found a place, packed up my apartment, and started fresh in a city where no one knew my family or my past. Leaving Milwaukee wasn't easy. I had good memories there, and part of me felt like I was letting Dylan and Emma win by leaving. But staying would have been worse. Every street, every restaurant, every shared memory, it all reminded me of what I'd lost. Moving was the only way to truly start over. By the time I left, I'd all but cut ties with my family. I wasn't answering their calls or responding to their texts. Even Mia's attempts to stay neutral didn't matter anymore. They'd made their choice by letting Dylan back in, and I'd made mine by leaving them behind. I didn't know what the future would hold, but one thing was clear. I was done being the good son who always put family first. From now on, I was putting myself first. It was time to rebuild, on my terms. By September, I had gotten comfortable with my new life in Indianapolis. Cutting ties with my family had been the best decision I'd made, even if it wasn't an easy one. Work was going well, I'd started to make some new friends, and the distance from all the chaos was exactly what I needed. Then my mom, Claire, called me. It was her birthday coming up, and she wanted me to come home to celebrate. I hesitated. My relationship with her had been strained ever since she let Dylan back into the house. But she kept pushing, saying it would be just the immediate family and that she missed me. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The drive to my parents' house was long, giving me way too much time to second-guess my decision. I told myself I was doing this for my mom, even if she had disappointed me. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if it was just her, my dad, and Mia. When I pulled up to the house, I immediately knew something was off. There were way too many cars parked outside. My stomach dropped when I spotted Dylan's car in the driveway. My hands gripped the steering wheel, as I debated turning around, but I didn't want to give my mom the satisfaction of bailing. I decided to walk in, keep it short, and leave as soon as possible. As soon as I stepped through the door, my mom greeted me with a big smile, acting like nothing had ever happened. "Alex, I'm so glad you came," she said, pulling me into a hug. Her energy was over the top, like she was trying to smooth things over with sheer force of will. I glanced around the living room, and there they were, Dylan and Emma, sitting on the couch like they didn't have a care in the world. Emma even had the nerve to laugh at something Mia said, as I stood there frozen in disbelief. "Why are they here?" I asked, my voice low but sharp. Before my mom could answer, she grabbed my arm and ushered me further into the house. "Let's talk in the living room," she said, like that would somehow make this less awful. When we got to the living room, my mom started her usual spiel about healing and family. She sat me down and launched into this speech about how Dylan and Emma made a mistake but were truly sorry, and that it was time to move forward as a family. Dylan, ever the shameless one, chimed in with, "I'm sorry, man, it just happened." He said it like he'd spilled coffee on my shirt instead of nuking my entire life. Emma followed up with, "We never meant to hurt you," which sounded even more ridiculous coming from her. She wasn't even trying to look remorseful. I stared at them, trying to figure out if they actually believed their own nonsense. The fact that they thought this was even remotely fixable was almost laughable. I leaned forward, looked Dylan dead in the eye, and said, "You're a pathetic excuse for a brother." Then I turned to Emma. "And you? I hope he cheats on you too. You deserve each other." The room went dead silent. My mom started to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood up, looked her square in the eye, and said, "Enjoy your golden boy. Don't call me again." As I walked out, I could hear my mom trying to calm everyone down, saying something about how I'd come around eventually. Dylan didn't say a word, and Emma just sat there. I got into my car and drove off without looking back. My mind was racing. How could my mom think this was okay? How could she expect me to forgive and forget? Like this was some minor disagreement instead of a betrayal that ripped my life apart? I spent the rest of the day trying to cool off, but I couldn't shake the anger. I kept replaying the scene in my head, wishing I'd said even more. Part of me wanted to call my mom and unload everything I was feeling, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. She'd already made her choice when she welcomed Dylan and Emma back into her life. That night, I blocked her number. I blocked Dylan's too, even though he hadn't reached out in months. I figured it was only a matter of time before he or Emma tried to clear the air again, and I didn't want to deal with it. For the next few weeks, I kept to myself. Work became my escape, and I threw myself into every project I could find. My coworkers probably thought I was just super dedicated, but the truth was I didn't know how else to channel my frustration. I stopped checking social media too. Seeing pictures of my family would only remind me of what happened, and I didn't need that kind of negativity. I told myself I was better off without them, but it still stung to know that the people I once trusted most had let me down so completely. Eventually, I started to feel a little better. The distance was helping, and I was slowly rebuilding my life. I told myself that I didn't need them, that I could create my own version of family with people who actually cared about me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. My mom wasn't the type to give up easily, and I had a feeling she'd find another way to drag me back into the drama. For now, though, I was content to keep my distance and focus on myself. Let them have their family unity. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who didn't value me. If they wanted to live in denial about what Dylan and Emma had done, that was their choice. I wasn't going to be a part of it. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. I was done letting them dictate my life. From now on, I was living on my own terms. By January, life in Indianapolis had become everything I hoped it would be. It felt good to be miles away from the chaos my family had created. I wasn't waking up every day angry anymore. I had space to breathe, think, and focus on myself. That's when Sarah, my distant cousin, slid into my messages. I barely knew her. We'd only met a few times at family events over the years. And even then, I don't think we ever exchanged more than a few words. So, when she messaged me out of nowhere saying she was moving to Indianapolis and could use some help settling in, I was skeptical. At first, I debated ignoring her message entirely. My family had proven time and time again that getting involved with them, even peripherally, was a mistake. But part of me felt bad. Sarah hadn't done anything to me personally, and she might not even know the full story of what had gone down. Besides, she seemed genuinely nervous about moving to a new city alone. Against my better judgment, I agreed to help her. The weekend came, and I showed up at the address she sent me. It was a small apartment complex in a quieter part of town, and as I pulled into the parking lot, everything seemed normal. That was until I saw the U-Haul truck and two very familiar figures unloading boxes. Dylan and my dad. For a moment, I froze, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My first instinct was to back out of the parking lot and never look back. But before I could, the front door of the apartment opened, and out came my mom. She spotted me immediately and waved, like this was some sort of family reunion instead of a trap. "Alex, wait!" she yelled, jogging toward my car. I put the car in park and stepped out, but I didn't move any closer. "What the hell is this?" I asked, gesturing toward Dylan and my dad, who were now standing awkwardly by the truck. My mom gave me her usual let's all be reasonable look and started rambling about how Sarah just needed some help, and it made sense for the family to come together. It was clear this wasn't about Sarah at all. This was about them finding another way to force me into some kind of reconciliation. Dylan, ever the master of insincere apologies, stepped forward with tears already welling up in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Alex," he said, his voice trembling like he was auditioning. "I know I messed up. I just want to fix things." I stared at him, completely unmoved. It was the same script he'd tried at my mom's birthday party, and it was just as pathetic now as it was then. Then, my dad decided to jump in. "Alex, come on," he said, his tone that irritating mix of exasperation and condescension he always used when he thought I was being unreasonable. "You're holding on to this grudge, and it's tearing the family apart. Be the bigger man." That was it. Hearing him tell me to be the bigger man, as if Dylan's actions were some minor mistake I needed to get over, sent me over the edge. He had no idea what it felt like to be betrayed by your own brother, to lose not just a relationship, but the trust you had in the people closest to you. When my dad stepped closer and put a hand on my shoulder, I reacted without thinking. My fist connected with his face before I even realized what I was doing. The sound of it was sharp, and for a moment, everything went still. My dad stumbled back, holding his jaw, and stared at me in shock. Dylan looked like he wanted to disappear, and my mom, predictably, burst into tears. "Alex," she sobbed, as if I was the one ruining everything. "How could you?" Dylan muttered something under his breath about me going too far, but I didn't even bother responding. I turned and walked back to my car. "Don't follow me," I said over my shoulder. When I got home, I blocked Sarah immediately. I didn't care if she was part of the setup or just a pawn in my mom's latest scheme. Either way, I wanted nothing to do with her. That night, I sat on my couch, trying to process what had just happened. I wasn't proud of losing my temper, but I didn't regret it either. My dad had crossed a line, and if a punch to the face was what it took to make them understand that I wasn't going to be manipulated, so be it. The worst part was that this wasn't even surprising. My mom had always been willing to bend over backward to protect Dylan, no matter how much damage he caused. And my dad? He was more concerned with keeping the peace than actually addressing the problem. I wondered how long they'd been planning this. Had they been talking to Sarah for weeks, convincing her to reach out to me? Or was it a last-minute idea? Either way, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd walked away before they could rope me back in. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I'd stood my ground, but sadness because it was yet another reminder of how far gone my family was. There was no fixing this. They didn't see Dylan and Emma's betrayal for what it was, and they never would. I decided that day to cut ties even further. I wasn't going to give them any more opportunities to pull me into their mess. My life in Indianapolis was good, and I wasn't about to let them ruin it. Whatever they wanted from me, closure, forgiveness, a return to normal, they weren't going to get it. I was done being the scapegoat, the one expected to keep the family together while everyone else did whatever they wanted. From now on, I was focusing on myself. They could keep their fake apologies and forced family unity. I didn't need any of it. By December, I was in a much better place emotionally and mentally. Life in Indianapolis was steady, and I had started dating Hannah, 24F, a woman who quickly became my rock. She was everything I needed: kind, funny, supportive, and most importantly, she respected my boundaries. She knew about the mess with my family and never once pressured me to reconnect. Hannah's family lived in Chicago, and she invited me to spend Christmas with them. It was the first time in years that I was genuinely looking forward to the holidays. Her parents were warm and welcoming, her siblings were great, and there was none of the tension and drama that had plagued my family gatherings for as long as I could remember. A week before Christmas, though, I got a letter in the mail. I almost ignored it because I didn't recognize the handwriting. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was from my mom. She wrote that Dylan and Emma had gotten married and that my parents were now separated. She didn't go into detail about why, but she kept emphasizing how much the family needed me this Christmas. She begged me to come home, saying it could be a chance to heal and to move forward. I read the letter twice, trying to figure out what she was really asking for. Was this about me? Or was it just another attempt to fix the mess Dylan had created? The mention of their marriage made me sick to my stomach. It felt like a slap in the face, a reminder that they had moved on without a shred of remorse for what they'd done. When I showed the letter to Hannah, she suggested I let it go. You don't owe them anything, she said gently. If it's just going to hurt you, there's no reason to put yourself through that. She was right, of course, but a small part of me still felt guilty. Not for cutting them off, but for the fact that I couldn't shake the sense of obligation my mom always tried to instill in me. In the end, I decided to spend Christmas with Hannah's family. They lived in a cozy house in the suburbs of Chicago, and as soon as we arrived, I knew I had made the right choice. Her parents greeted me with hugs, and her mom immediately started fussing over whether I liked hot chocolate or mulled cider better. It was simple and wholesome in a way I hadn't experienced in years. We spent Christmas Eve decorating the tree, baking cookies, and playing board games. It was the kind of holiday I'd always wanted, but never really had. For once, I wasn't waiting for some kind of argument to break out. Christmas morning was just as peaceful. Hannah's family had a tradition of opening presents in their pajamas, and they even had a stocking for me with my name on it. It was thoughtful, simple, and made me feel like I belonged. But even in the middle of all that warmth and happiness, the thought of my family lingered in the back of my mind. I couldn't help but wonder what they were doing, whether my mom was sitting alone in the house, whether my dad was celebrating at all, or whether Dylan and Emma were playing happy couple while the rest of them pretended everything was fine. I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on the moment. I wasn't going to let their drama ruin this for me. In January, just as I was settling back into my routine, I got an email from Mia. I hadn't heard from her in months, so seeing her name in my inbox was a surprise. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Mia wrote that my dad was now living in a motel, and Dylan and Emma were struggling financially. She didn't go into too much detail, but she hinted that Dylan's work situation wasn't stable, and that Emma was apparently unhappy in their marriage. I stared at the screen, trying to figure out why Mia thought I needed to know any of this. Was she looking for sympathy? Did she expect me to swoop in and fix things? If so, she was going to be disappointed. I didn't respond to the email. What was I supposed to say? Sorry to hear that, but it's not my problem. I wasn't going to get dragged back into their mess, no matter how bad things got for them. They had made their choices, and now they had to live with the consequences. Still, a part of me felt vindicated. They were struggling, and while I didn't take pleasure in their suffering, I couldn't help but feel like it was karma catching up to them. Dylan and Emma had destroyed my life, and now their perfect little bubble was starting to crack. Hannah noticed I was quieter than usual that evening and asked if everything was okay. I told her about the email, and she just nodded, her expression soft but firm. You've done the hard work of moving on, she said. Don't let them pull you back in. She was right. I had spent too much time rebuilding my life to let their problems derail me now. Whatever was happening with my family wasn't my responsibility anymore. The next morning, I deleted Mia's email and blocked her address. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I wasn't going to let them use guilt or pity to worm their way back into my life. That Christmas with Hannah's family felt like a turning point. For the first time, I realized what it meant to be truly free of the toxicity I had grown up with. I didn't need my family's approval or their validation. I had found people who cared about me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. The chaos of my past wasn't going to define me anymore. I had built a new life, and I wasn't looking back. By the time June rolled around, I was feeling good about how far I'd come. My life in Indianapolis was stable. My relationship with Hannah was growing stronger every day, and my family was nothing but a distant memory. I had blocked them all, ignored every half-hearted attempt to reach out, and focused entirely on myself. But of course, they weren't done with me. One Saturday morning, I was getting ready to head out for a run when I heard a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I looked through the peephole, I froze. It was Mia. I hadn't seen her in over a year, and for a split second, I considered pretending I wasn't home. But eventually, I opened the door, and she immediately started crying. Alex, I'm so sorry, she said, stepping into the hallway before I could invite her in. I should have stood up for you more. I should have done more. Her words caught me off guard. For so long, Mia had been this passive presence in my life, someone who never outright hurt me but never really defended me either. Hearing her take responsibility was unexpected, and I wasn't sure how to respond. I cut ties with Dylan and Emma, she continued. And Mom, I just couldn't take it anymore. I folded my arms and leaned against the doorframe. What do you want, Mia? She hesitated, wiping her eyes. I just want to talk. Dad wants to talk too. Can we meet? Please? I should have said no. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to shut the door and move on with my day. But there was something about the way she looked at me, pleading, desperate, that made me pause. Against my better judgment, I agreed. A few days later, we met at a quiet diner on the edge of the city. Mia was already there when I arrived, sitting with our dad, Joe. I hadn't seen him since I punched him in the face outside Sarah's apartment, and the tension between us was palpable. He stood up as I approached, extending a hand. I didn't take it. Instead, I sat down across from them and waited for one of them to speak. I'm sorry, my dad said finally, his voice low. For everything. I should have done more to protect you. I should have handled things differently. It wasn't much, but it was more than I expected. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be salvaged. Then the door to the diner opened, and my mom walked in. I tensed immediately, and my dad had the decency to look embarrassed. She wanted to come, he said, as if that excused blindsiding me. And of course, right behind her were Dylan and Emma. I stood up, ready to leave, but Mia grabbed my arm. Please, Alex, just hear them out. That was it for me. I stood up, cutting my mom off before she even started talking. You're not my family anymore, I said, my voice cold and steady. You want forgiveness? Find someone else to manipulate. I'm done. I threw some cash on the table for my coffee and walked out, ignoring the voices calling after me. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. They could beg, plead, and cry all they wanted, but I was done being the scapegoat for their dysfunction. Now at 28, I feel like I've lived several lifetimes since the chaos of my family unfolded. When I look back at everything that's happened, it almost doesn't feel real, like it was someone else's life. But the scars remind me it was all too real. The good news? I've come out stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who actually care about me. Hannah and I got engaged last year. It was nothing fancy, just the two of us at our favorite park in Indianapolis. I didn't go for some grand gesture because I'd learned that real love doesn't need a spectacle. When I asked her to marry me, she cried and said yes immediately. That moment felt like the final piece of the puzzle I'd been trying to solve since everything fell apart. She's not just my fiancée, she's my partner in every sense of the word. She supported me through all the ups and downs, listened without judgment, and never once tried to push me back toward the family I left behind. With her, I feel safe in a way I never thought possible after what Dylan and Emma did. The biggest news, though, we're expecting our first child. It's a boy, and every time I think about holding him for the first time, I get this overwhelming mix of excitement and nervousness. I never thought I'd be ready for fatherhood after the mess I grew up in, but Hannah's confidence in us gives me hope. We're going to do everything we can to give our son a life full of love, respect, and stability. The kind of life I didn't have. One of the first steps I took toward completely cutting ties with my family was changing my last name. I didn't rush into it. For a while, I thought it might be too extreme, or that it wouldn't make much of a difference. But as time went on, I realized that my last name felt like an anchor to the past, and I was ready to let it go. It was a strange feeling, standing in the courthouse and filling out the paperwork. When the judge signed off on it, I felt this unexpected sense of relief, like I'd finally closed a door I'd been afraid to shut completely. I chose a last name that felt meaningful to me, something tied to a personal hero rather than my family tree. Hannah was fully supportive. She even joked that she'd take my new last name once we got married, saying, "We're starting our own legacy now." That really stuck with me. The idea of creating something new, something separate from all the pain and betrayal, became my focus. I've heard bits and pieces about what's been going on with my family since I cut them off. Not because I seek it out, but because mutual acquaintances sometimes slip up and mention it. Apparently, my parents are officially separated now. My dad is living in a tiny rental on the outskirts of town, and my mom is still in the family house trying to keep up appearances. Dylan and Emma? Let's just say karma hasn't been kind to them. They're drowning in debt, and from what I hear, their marriage is on shaky ground. Emma lost her job, and Dylan's work situation is far from stable. The irony isn't lost on me. After everything they did to tear me down, they're the ones struggling to keep their heads above water. As for Mia, her fiancé left her a few months before their wedding. I don't know the details, and honestly, I don't care to. She made her choice to stand by Dylan and Emma when it mattered most, and that's not something I can forgive. The last time I heard from any of them directly was over a year ago, when my mom sent me another letter begging me to reconnect. I didn't even open it. I tossed it straight into the trash. Whatever regret they feel now is their burden to carry, not mine. One of the biggest lessons I've learned through all of this is the importance of setting boundaries. For so long, I let my family push me around, guilt me into forgiving them, and make me feel like their problems were my responsibility. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It was messy, but it was the only way to truly move forward. Sometimes I wonder if my family ever looks back and regrets their choices. Do they think about the pain they caused? Do they realize how much they lost by betraying me? I'll probably never know, and that's okay. Their regret, or lack of it, doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I've finally found peace. If anyone reading this is going through something similar, let me tell you, it's not easy to walk away from toxic relationships, especially when they're family. But sometimes, it's the only way to protect your peace and create the life you deserve. You're not obligated to keep people in your life just because of shared DNA. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up for you, support you, and love you unconditionally. And with Hannah by my side and our little one on the way, I finally have the family I've always wanted.
Did you enjoy my story? What a journey it has been. I truly wonder, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have chosen silence to keep the peace, or would you have done what I did to reclaim your dignity? Let's meet in the comments below. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. Which city are you listening from tonight? If my story resonated with you, you can support me and help me bring more stories like this to the world by sending a super thanks. Your sweet support means the world to me and allows me to continue this journey with all of you. On the screen now, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend you watch next. There are so many more on my channel, each with its own lessons and triumphs. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for being here with me. Until the next story, with love and respect.